Have you ever had trouble casting a casting reel? Have you had trouble learning how? You haven't? Have you ever had a backlash? Hey guys and girls, hope you're having a good one today. I know I am. I'm out here on the water, and that's always good. We've been getting several comments lately about how to use a casting reel. How do you set one of these casting reels up? And some people say, Jimmy, you make it look so easy. But this is really an easy piece of equipment to use if you know how, like my old buddy Switzer says. And I'm going to show you how I set them up. And it'll probably be different than you have ever been told before on fishing a casting reel. But if you've ever had trouble fishing a casting reel, if you've ever thrown these things away, or somebody gave you one, or you bought one and you got it laying around somewhere, go dig it out, set it up the way I'm getting ready to tell you, and you'll become really, really good at throwing a casting reel. It takes practice. Now, I've made millions and millions of casts. There's no doubt about that. But now here's the main thing about casting. Casting is done with your wrist. It's not done with your arm, it's done with your wrist. So you're not using your arm to cast. You're simply using your wrist. So remember this in casting. You're going to cast, you're going to keep your elbow in close to your body, like I've got it right here. Sometimes people learn, I teach kids how I put a book or something like that between their elbow and their body. And if they use their arm, that falls out on the ground. They got to pick it up and put it back in there. So it forces them to use your wrist. You want to use your wrist. So all casting, all pitching, all flipping is done with your wrist. None of it's really done with your arm. It's all done with your wrist. Now, you might have your arm out there like that at the end of a cast or something, but your cast is done with your wrist. The way to make yourself do that is to keep your elbow in close to your body. Now, when we're talking about casting and pitching and flipping, casting is throwing the bait out. It's casting. You can cast overhanded or underhanded. You can cast sidearm, however way you want to cast. But this is casting. That's casting, when you're casting a lure out. Now, when you hear fishermen talking about pitching, and you hear a tournament guy, then he talks about how he's catching his fish, he was pitching the bait. Pitching is done like this right here. We'll do a video on pitching and teach you how to pitch. It's real, real easy to learn, easier than falling in love. But that's what pitching is. Pitching is simply bringing a bait in and pitching it back out. Now, you pitch in short distances, usually pitch in areas, maybe 15 to 30 feet, something like that. So you're pitching, that's what pitching looks like. So casting, you see what casting looks like? I showed you what pitching. This is flipping. Flipping is when you are using your offhand, and you're usually doing this about 2 or 2.5 the length of the rod. So if you got let's say a 7.5 foot rod, you're pitching out there 15 to 18 feet. That's what pitching looks like right there. Now you see I'm still doing it with my wrist. All pitching, all casting, all flipping is done with your wrist. So when you hear folks talking about those three techniques of delivering a bait out to the fish, that's exactly what they're doing. Okay, let's talk about setting these reels up. Now, your reels have two adjustments on them. One is this tension adjustment that's over here on this side right here. This is your tension that increases or decreases tension on this spool. Now, if you tighten it up pretty tight, see what I'm doing there, tighten it up pretty tight, and you push the button, if you watch that, you see that just barely falls? I got it tight, tighten it down. You can tighten it where it won't fall at all, where it just barely, barely falls. That's the way most people have been taught and shown how to use this kind of reel. So you push that button, and that bait just barely, barely, barely falls out there. Now what I want to do, I'm going to back it off and open that up. I'm going to back it, turn it to the left, tighten it up, righty-tighty. Tighten it up, you turn to the right, to loosen it, turn to the left. I'm going to open that up, so you see what happens now when I push that reel? See what happens? See how fast it is? That is the way that I want it. I want it very, very fast. Now, I know you might be thinking, if I've got my reel that open, I'm going to get a heck of a backlash. And if you get a backlash with this open, you're going to get a heck of a backlash. But I'm telling you, if you get a backlash, get a real one. Don't get no Mickey Mouse backlash. You get a backlash, get a pro's backlash. When you got to pull your buck knife out, open it up, cut that out with your pocket knife. That's called a buck porch backlash. You sit on the back porch, you pick it out with your buck knife. Anyway, so that's the way I want them. I want it open like that. Now stay with me. Don't say don't turn this off just because I said open your reel up like that. Stay with me because I want to solve the problem that we were just talking about. Okay, here's the other adjustments you have on the reel. This adjustment over here is just adjusting magnets or balance weights. You have a minimum all the way down like that. You have a maximum all the way over there. Some of them got numbers on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Halfway is about a 5 or 50%. Now, on this adjustment here, this is adjusting magnets. If you've got a really expensive reel, $200, $300 reels, they may have balanced weights. Balanced weights are inside here, and it's usually about 6 weights. You have some weights in, some weights out. It's the exact same. It's the exact same type situation. The less expensive reels, and this is an inexpensive reel. This whole rod and reel retails for under $100, about 89 bucks, the entire rod and reel. So that's like it's about a $59 rod and about a $30 reel. So that's a very inexpensive reel. These are magnets in here, not balanced weights. I set them either way. If I've got magnets, I set them about halfway. So I'm going to go about halfway. So down here, minimum, maximum all the way over to there, I'm going to go about halfway, about right there, about halfway on that. Now, my reel is still wide open. You see that? But my magnets is going to help on the backlashing. Balanced weights, I usually leave 2 balanced weights out. If I'm using a high dollar reel that's got balanced weights, 2 of them in the out position, the other 4 in the in position. Okay, now here's the deal. When you throw a casting reel, when you have it this open, first of all, it takes very little effort to get that bait out there. That's one of the secrets of having this tension off where your reel's wide open. It takes God, dogs, I almost had a bite. It's a tree, but still it's almost a bite. But you got very little effort to get it out there. So if I want to pitch that bait, if I want to cast that bait out there, I'm going to cast and just barely have to throw it to get it out there 30 or 40 feet. I don't have to make a very difficult throw at all. And so, all right, here's the deal. You're going to, the casting reels always run better if the line is going up and down as opposed to back and forth. So you want this to flow this way here, up and down. So when you cast this reel, you always want to turn it. You always want to turn it where your reel handles are up or down. Depending on whether you're casting left-handed or right-handed, you want to turn it where your reel handles are up or down. So when you throw this out there, you throw it out, you don't want it like this where the line's going back and forth. You want it down like this or up like this. So now your line is flowing off of that spool much, much better. All right, now here's the last thing that's really, really, really super important. And then I'm going to tell you what causes the backlash in the first place. And that'll allow you to alleviate them, not totally, but pretty much. Okay, here's the other thing. When you cast, you want to maintain constant contact of your thumb on that spool. You see what's happening here? All right, here we go. I'm losing my sun a little bit here. I'm having to move around because my boat's shifted a little bit and only got 1 power pole on it. I need 2. And I'm shifting around here a little bit. You see what's happening here? I hold my thumb on there. Constant contact. There's an email service called Constant Contact that everybody's using. This is constant contact of your thumb on that spool. So people have told you to take it off and put it back on when it hits the water. They tell you take your thumb off at the end of the cast, put it back on. Stop doing that. Don't do that. Keep your thumb on that spool the entire cast. That way you're increasing and decreasing pressure on that spool with your thumb. That's all you're doing. So when I make a cast, I've got my thumb on there, and I stop it as soon as it hits the water. I increase the pressure. I've got light pressure on it during the cast as I'm throwing, and I've got, when I get ready to stop it, I put heavy pressure on it. Now, the other thing that allows me to do is if something goes wrong, I can stop it. I don't have to think about it. And so you want to keep that constant contact on there. Now, the other thing is, as I talked to you about earlier, you're casting with your wrist. So this is what you're doing. Keep your elbow in. You're casting simply with your wrist. I'm going to make an overhand cast. To be honest with you, the overhand cast is my least cast that I use percentage-wise. I cast underhanded, sidearm, pitch, and flip probably 90% of the time. Probably 10% of my casts in a year's time are an overhanded cast. About the only time I cast overhanded when I'm wanting to make a real long cast, throw that thing out in the middle. Whoops, see, and I got a little backlash. Let me tell you the reason I got that right there. The reason I got that little backlash in there is I cast past my knot. If you'll look in here, I cast all the line out that I had on the spool, and I cast past the knot, and I was going to let that run. That knot, I know everybody's sitting out there laughing right now, saying, but cast past that knot, And when it hit that knot right there, you see what it did? When it hit that knot, and I don't even have it trimmed down very close. When I hit that little knot, that's where I got about 30-pound test backing, and I got 15-pound test line. That's 17-pound test line on there. I've got that tied on, and you should never get down to that, really. But I made a super long cast right there and got that thing down past that knot. Got her down past that knot. But that's about the only time that I really cast overhanded, is when I'm wanting to make a really, really long throw out there. I knew that knot was coming up then. So you see that knot down there? You see it in there? Right there it is. That's what caused that to backlash a second ago. All right, now we're going to talk about solving that backlash problem. Here's how you solve that backlash problem. You don't want to overcast the reel. What caused backlashes is overcasting the reel. When you're throwing it harder, and when you do that, and you kind of get a little jerky action, and that causes it to backlash. What caused that to backlash on that cast a minute ago was it hit that knot, and it caused it to stop and go. It's the same thing happens if you cast and you try to overcast it. Well, if you'll set your reel up the way I've told you to set it up right now, you will never have to overcast again. Have you talk about overcast. Have you ever been out there and you're fishing along, and maybe you see a fish jump up and hit a shad out there a little bit further than you can normally throw? Just a little bit out of your range, but you think you can make it. So you put your button, you reach back and you go, and throw it as hard as you can. You're overcasting. Throw it as hard as you can. As hard as you can. It runs out there and it gets about halfway out and it goes, and your reel blows up. You ever had that happen to you? When that happens, that's when you say, shucks, or whatever you say when that happens. I don't know what you say. Shucks, because you got a big backlash. That's because you tried to overcast. Now, that's oversimplifying the deal, but even if you're just trying to make a normal cast like that, if you're trying to make a normal cast, if you're casting too hard, you're overcasting. So, if you will set the reel up like I've told you to do, it takes very little to get that out. That little pitch, you see how far I'm pitching that out there? And I throw both left-handed, right-handed, which I think you need to learn how to do. But you see, look at that. Look how easy that little pitch is. Got constant contact on my thumb, doing it totally with my wrist, keeping my elbow in close to my body. You practice those kind of things right there, and you're going to become a very, very good caster. Open that reel up. Set that tension on about halfway. Use your wrist. Get your wrist limber where you're using your wrist to make your throw. Turn your reel over where your line is flowing up and down, and I promise you, you're going to become an expert with this kind of rod and reel. And keep in mind, I'm not using a $300 rod and a $300 reel or whatever. This is an outfit that's under $100, probably $89 retail, so $99 maybe. But anyway, it doesn't take the most expensive equipment to learn how to become a really, really good caster. I recommend that you learn to do this in the yard. I recommend that you set a target up there and practice with it. And you can learn to use a casting reel, and you can become really, really, really good at it. And you want to get better? Want a secret to getting better? Go fishing more often. Go fishing more often. The more you fish, the more you cast, the better you're going to become. Hey, guys and girls, if you like this video, share it with a bunch of your friends trying to build this YouTube channel. If you're not subscribed to Jimmy Houston Outdoors YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that little notification bell so you won't miss a single video. We do videos on Sunday, Tuesday, Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm going to get back to fishing. I'm messing this whole thing up. Hey, guys and girls, I love you.